So last week we tried to use Sphinx's literal directive or literal node instead of using the what's it called, the production list. I don't think you were here, William. Right. So didn't really get anything done last week. Let's see the build documentation. So right now, or with what was in the branch 2 weeks ago, the tool we are making makes these grammar snippets with some options and the grammar to show, and this is then, oh sorry, too many places to share my screen. All right, so okay, so the tool writes these grammar snippets with a few options, and then this body, which then gets passed to Sphinx's production list, right? So there's a Sphinx plugin thing that reads these and generates like restructured text source, which then it parses, right? The problem with that, which I probably can't show right now. Oh, so the problem with that is the format is very much fixed. Yeah, this uses this weird colon equals, and it lines these up, so whenever there's one long name of a rule, everything gets pushed over to the side, while the actual grammar has much nicer syntax, where if the rule is too big, it can just go on its own line. And that is very helpful because the rules look so much nicer if they have more space. Like we can I mean, I tried wrapping the lines and it's working nicely, but no matter how well the lines are wrapped automatically, it's always better if there's more space on the line. Like, makes a lot of difference. So the goal now is to not use Sphinx's production list directive, and instead use like a literal block that's used for code, like code snippets and stuff. The problem with, because it always uses this weird operator and it always lines them up. So if there's one big name here, everything gets moved over to the side and it can't go on its own line below. Right. So ideally we would have something like this. Either just use a colon here and then do everything on separate lines. So I spent 2 hours on it last week, and yeah, so the problem is the code listings in Sphinx are inherited from docutils, right? So there's like restructured text directive. There we go. So there's we can write code, and apparently this is parsed or marked up as Python source code, and DocUtils itself has pigments integration. I didn't know that. I thought Sphinx adds that. Maybe it does on top of DocUtils or something like that. But this means that this body is just text, but we don't want it to be just text. We want to have links in it, right? So all of these are links to other rules or maybe tokens, which means we have to fight DocUtils and Sphinx, and this stuff is, well, I couldn't find documentation that would explain this. So there's a bunch of hacks and seeing how it's done, and weird empty arguments in places that I'm not entirely sure what they mean. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a minor tweak. I think it's really much more readable if we can use this kind of syntax. Right. But I guess that's part of the effort, to find out how difficult it would be. Yeah, literal block. I think that's it. Yes. In DocUtils, it specifically can contain text data plus inline elements, and one of those is reference. So this does. The problem is Sphinx does something on top which seems to erase the links. And I think that something on top is syntax highlighting. So where we got to last week is this, like we can generate the monospaced element, but this part is not a link. Right, so this is done by making an pending xref node, which is something that Sphinx is supposed to replace with a cross-reference once it knows where this will go to. Which one? Oh yeah, this is just there so I know where stuff is coming from, right? This is demo code. So there's this ref node. To that ref node, we add some text, and then we do this literal block, add some text to that. Everything works fine, except this ref node is not linked. And right, so let me add it again, rebuild, and let's see if that's the problem. pretty sure this worked at some. Oh, I'm not adding. I'm not adding any text to it, so maybe it does need some text in it. Ah, there it is. And yes, it's a link. It works outside. So that's nodes.literal block, so that's Sphinx. Let me see what will happen if I instead of HTML, I'll try to build the pseudo XML. Oh, I can't. That's not in the make file. So I have to run it from the docs directory by hand. And pseudo XML is one of the backends, like HTML or PDF or that, and it should create like a dump of the internal doc tree, I think it's called, as that structure. So pseudo XML files are now here, and let's see how it looks. So there is a reference here. Yes. So we got to this level. That's nice. And now we just need to get to HTML. So one of the tricks we can do here is look at the Sphinx internals, which I already have opened. There's visit production list, and there's also a visit literal over here. Is it supposed to be literal or literal block? Ah, here it is, visit literal block. So what this does is, I'll ignore this part for now, it gets the language, that's like the highlight language, gets whether to put in line numbers, gets highlight arguments, highlight options, and then it calls the highlighter on the node's raw source. Then it creates a div tag, stuffs the highlighted thing in it, and ends the div tag, and that's it. Right, so I guess this raw source would be just plain text, which makes sense because you can't really run this Figment's highlighter on a tree. That doesn't make sense. So I think what we want is somehow invoke this if, right? Because if some condition, then we most probably have a parsed literal block, which we don't want to highlight. And a parsed literal block is referenced over in the DocuTools documentation here. So we we're not working with directives here. Like, where do you want me to? So this is adding nodes. Right, directives. Directives are the like the REST's syntax thing, like this thing. Yeah. Some of them. I mean, what I want is, well, let's try if like this parsed literal works. I can put that in here and say this is a parsed literal block with a link going to python.org. Spaces are preserved, all right. Let's rebuild that. Oh, I'm not in the right directory right now. Okay. Yep. Possible. It's possible somehow. So let's see. Let's see how the pseudo XML for that will work. What did I write there? Preserved. Oh, not in the right file. Okay, so there's a literal block. Force false, language Python 3, line numbers, translatable, XML space preserve. Like that's exactly this thing. That's probably the default. Yeah, that's the default, and I'm specifically saying language is none in here. And there's force false, that matches. I think I tried both variants. Yeah, so the difference between these two literal blocks is not shown here. And the difference, I would guess.
No, I see it.
You see it?
One is referencing Turner, the other is Perkins. Oh no, this I saw there was an image for it. Alright. Actually no, that is true.
Oh yeah, it's a different kind of link. That's true. And yeah, this is like this goes to python.org. That's an external reference.
Okay, please, all good.
So yeah, the difference is somewhere else, and I think like this is this is what we want, right? So if node.rawSource is not node.asText, then we do that. So let's try to get the literal block and somehow massage its raw source. Well, at this point I'm trying to see where the problem is more than write the proper solution. Now this should not match anything. Let's see. Ah, there we go. Okay. Woohoo! That's it. That's what we want here. Well, I looked at this if, so that raw source needs to be different from asText. And yes, sure enough, if I set raw source to something, that makes everything work. So that makes me happy. Now I know where the problem is, but now I have to understand what this actually means and come up with a proper solution. What is raw source? So the problem is, I believe that raw source is a docutils thing, and therefore I can't find the documentation for it. So, well, project documentation overview. Reference materials for all groups.
Can we use inspect to see what the source code is?
Well, I can show you the source code on GitHub or in an editor.
I see. Okay. It's not good enough.
But yeah, that's not good. So the problem is there's all these classes everywhere and multiple inheritance, and you never know what's coming from where. So I would much rather look in the documentation to see how things work. Problem is the docutils docs are written for documenting the syntax of restructured text rather than the Python library. Yes.
So if the raw source is different from the text itself, it's a special node which needs visiting. So the
Right.
question is, why is it not doing that already?
So one thing I did is look for raw source in the Sphinx docs, which mentions 2 changes. So like in Sphinx 2.1, the raw source property of production nodes contains the full production role. It's not interesting, but there more supporting non-standard parser for translation web support. Node.rawSource is fallback to node.asText during docutils transforming, which I guess means that if I set raw source to nothing, Sphinx will fill it in. And I think one of these arguments to that all the nodes get, and all the example code seems to leave them empty. One of them is probably raw source. So let's see what nodes.literalBlock is. Do prints show up in here? No, I don't see that. Can you like make it more obvious? No, it doesn't show up here. So if standard output is redirected, I don't really want to call help and open something. So this is DocuTools nodes literal block. Right. So yes, we can use inspect. And we can look for DocuTools node literal blocks like here. Yeah, so literal block is using multiple inheritance to get all its features. So we now look in general or fixed text element. Let's see where they imported from. There it is. So there's general, which comes from body, which is just a an empty class. Wow. And the other one, what was it? Fixed text element. Oh, here it is. So the arguments for init here are raw source and text. I have seen those before and have tried to find the documentation for these without any luck. So apparently the default is empty strings. Let's see, element. Class element. It also has raw source and children, and that inherits node. Which does this have in it? No, node does not have in it, so I need to look at element, and this is the first time raw source appears. So let's see. Element is the superclass. Emulate dictionaries, do special attributes, emulate lists, maybe constructed. Yeah, all this operator overload. So much operator overloading in one class. Raw source. Okay, raw source is the raw text from which this element was constructed. Note, some elements do not set this value. Right. Okay, so we know what raw source is, but apparently Sphinx uses it for something entirely different. I assume it will break stuff. I should also not do this if I do that. Okay, it hangs. This hangs too. So the one problem I have is if I run Sphinx too many times, it starts taking a lot of time. Another problem is when I do a partial rebuild after removing everything, it complains that the search index couldn't be loaded, and of course the Python docs are set up where warnings are treated as errors. So all these roadblocks on my way. Anyway, we don't need this print anymore. So let's get back to putting none here, and I'll try that right after this build. But things are looking pretty good. Things are looking very good. Just need to find what's the best way to set this raw source. And the only thing that needs to do is not match the text version. Right, so let's see. It was, so yeah, so apparently if you set it to none, Sphinx still thinks it's empty, so it will use the default. So the first one is raw source and the second one was named text. And I didn't investigate that. So yeah, I just need to like let's put a big comment here so people don't get lost when they read it. Elements. So node is the superclass that doesn't do anything. Have those elements have a raw source that is set to the they're supposed to be set to the original source. I assume that's the case. Sphinx uses it. Sphinx does the following with this. If it's empty, set it to, and let me quote the documentation here, to node as text. So I'll make sure a Sphinx maintainer reads this, but that's probably the extent of what I want to do. Okay. All right. I think this can go in production. Now, another problem with Sphinx and Duckutils is that people do write this kind of hacks. So changing anything in that code base is not possible because it breaks hacks like this. Well, there's supposed to be some mechanism to like put options on nodes. I think you can just invite an just come up with an option name and attach it like this, probably, and then Sphinx could look at something like, please don't syntax highlight this. Problem with that is this is in the writer, right? So it's in the output routine for HTML5. The output routine for LaTeX has the same thing. The output routine for man pages, well, I guess that doesn't do highlighting, but now every writer does this, like does the highlighting in a writer specific way and uses this, right? So it would be pretty hard to change that, I guess. So the problem is I don't have raw source. I'm not generating this from restructured text. Right? And what Sphinx itself is doing is itself a hack. Right? I think this was meant to support like markdown parsers and things like that, which generate these nodes and want syntax highlighting. So yeah, to none. No, it just did the same thing as an empty string. Okay. Let's break stuff. That worked. That actually worked. But I do think I want to use some text here. Because if somebody goes like spelunking in the code and putting some prints here and there, this can at least guide them to the place where it's defined and where it's commented like this. I mean, I could probably just put this whole thing in there.
Oh, I love it. Fantastic.
Fake, yes. Well, let's see what we can do to answer that question is search the Sphinx repository for raw source with the correct spelling and see. Yeah, it probably does this all over.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Anyway. So this is the idea to do this was basically what we left off with last week, I think. I don't know if I actually said it or it was just in my head. But yeah, near the end of the 2 hours last week, I noticed this if and wondered if setting raw source would be the key. I did not know about this hint yet, and I didn't look up raw source in the documental source code, but now it all makes sense. It's a workaround on top of a hack. It's just kind of par for the course for software this old. But yeah, it works. And that's great. So I don't need this anymore.
How you actually run this in with this raw source set like this?
Oh yeah, I used a smaller string there. Don't see why that would be an issue.
Not that this is broke, but I guess this would still.
Alright, so what is next? Next up is looking at the actual content, which is a list of lines, and somehow parsing that. So yeah, we can restructure as much as we want, but I would like this to stay readable, because the main reason we are putting these directly in the RST files is that they will show up in diffs. Right? If I didn't need this to be human readable and reviewable, so if somebody changes the documentation, this will change and it'll show up in the diff. If I didn't want that to be readable, it could go in a separate file, like the diagrams do. Right? So it's very important to me that this actually matches what's in the documentation, so that whoever changes the grammar will instantly see the effect on docs readers. So yeah, I mean we could do something like, you know, put rule here, with some, I don't know what we could use, something that's not in the actual grammar, right? And then use a regex to turn this into a link, stuff like that. But let's keep it readable. So how do we do that? So the grammar consists of symbols, rule names, which are currently in the backticks, token names, which are in uppercase or in quotes, and rule names like this, which need to be turned into like hyperlink targets. And I think we can parse all of that with regular expressions. So let's try that. So first of all, these texts, I think I can add texts with this plus equals rather than putting them all in here. And Sphinx is taking its time again, so let me remove its cache and regenerate everything. And no. That was just a warning, right? Maybe it worked? No. Oh dear. Okay, I will take a detour to the makefile and see, or the docs makefile, and see if I can tell it to not treat warnings as errors. So that's probably this Sphinx error handling. Set that to nothing. Okay, and now we get unknown node type pending xref. Well, that was the thing we added here. That's the ref node here. Interesting. So if I add stuff directly in here, everything's fine. Unfortunately, after an error, I have to rebuild everything. But this was fine. Yeah, Sphinx. It's so yeah, Sphinx gets this -j auto from the make file. Huh. Right there. But let's see if we still have annotated assignment. Oh yeah, it's here. It's supposed to link to here, but it says unknown node type pending xref. That sucks. How come we didn't get that error before? I should have put things in Git while they still worked. Or maybe I didn't rebuild enough. Okay, so that would be another roadblock. So what's happening here is that when I add this pending xref to the Sphinx document, it should get converted to this reference. Once Sphinx knows where it should go. Okay, so this works. Alright, so there's a link here, there's a link here. And what I did is remove this comment. And I removed this node. Oh, and I'm also supposed to remove this. Right, so I reused the pending xref, I put it in the literal, and then I also put it in the paragraph, which, well, I'm not surprised it resulted in a very weird error. And I'm not going to investigate how that error came to be. But I assume reusing a node in two different places in a tree is not good. Alright, okay, and now for the experiment I wanted to make, can I add a text to this literal so I don't have to build like a list of these nodes in advance, which I guess I could, but passing a giant list as positional arguments is not really pretty. Yeah, this works nicely. All right, so I think that's it for the Sphinx-related experiments. Let's see how the diff works. Oh, I definitely want to remove this part. Right. Get Sphinx to show a link or reference inside, what's this called? Inside a literal block. Okay. And now it's time to look at this content, which is a list of lines. It's not really a list, it's something that simulates a list, but I believe I can iterate over it, and if I'm not changing it, I don't need that disconnect. Right, so we use the content later on. I don't need this anymore. I will generate the needed content here, and what I will do is just add each line for now. Right, so I don't want to add these, and I want to add the lines from the content from here. And hopefully that works. Sphinx is taking its time again for some reason. Updating environment. I think its cache just got too big again and needs to be thrown out and regenerated. Which means all of the docs need to be rebuilt so that the index is all complete and doesn't show any warnings. There we go. Okay. We have the input here. So I would like this to be almost exactly, I would like the output to almost exactly match the input, except getting rid of these backticks and of course putting in the links here and the link targets here. Maybe make this bold or make it even a link to the corresponding token. That would be nice. But one thing I will do right now is put a space in here, just so my eyes don't hurt when I read it. And that would be in this tool. That would go directly in the RST documents. So now I should, oh, no, I removed everything. Okay, I shouldn't have repeated the previous command there. Oh well. Anyway, so now I need to parse each line. So I think this calls for a regular expression. If at the beginning of the line There's some rule name, which I guess is an identifier, ASCII only, alphanumeric, or underscores, followed by a colon. Then I want to make that a rule name, and a rule name means, let's see here, rule name means it's bold and it has an ID, at least in HTML. So before I do that, let me do some trivial transformation, like put in some extra character just to make sure I'm passing it correctly. So we already have RE imported. So how do we structure this? So we want a regular expression. I'll just put it directly in here. That'll be the text of the regular expression, and I will want re.verbose, just so I can split this into multiple lines. And what I will be looking for is start of string, and then alphanumeric, so A to Z, uppercase, lowercase, 0 to 9, and underscore, more of those, and then a colon, right? So this is identifier at start of line. I don't know how familiar you are with regular expressions. Or if you're still listening. Oh, no problem. I don't know how familiar you are with regular expressions. Right. So I would like to use a named group here, which is something I need to look up every single time. So this one. I would have probably guessed, but okay, so this is a rule name. Okay. So this colon, yeah. I could put it outside, but then I would want to look ahead for it. Which I guess I can do. Positive look ahead is matches. Yeah, I definitely don't want to match the whole line. So what I want is to pick out pieces that I want to highlight in some way. So one of those would be the rule name, another one would be the token name, and so on. And I also want to get the spaces and colons between those. Right, and then what I do is like iter, find iter here. So that's an iterator yielding match objects overall non-overlapping matches of RE. Matches are returned in the order found. Empty matches are returned in the result. Is there something that will give me the match objects, but also the things between them? Well, there's find all, which is gives me tuples. So there's split, which yeah, I want something like split where it picks out the things that that match the regular expression, but also the ones that don't.
I think that's an argument split.
No, it depends on if there are capturing groups in the regular expression. If they're not, this will only like this. This will only give you whatever match. If there are parentheses, you also get the stuff in between. Which is really non-obvious but very old behavior. But I would like this to get the stuff in between included. But I would also like to get the match objects that I get the named groups from, so I don't need to use. Very annoying, yes. So if I was replacing stuff by text, I could use sub. Does match have like a suffix? I can. Yeah, so I can use find iter and save where the last match ended, and anything from there to the start of the next match is just literal text. Okay, so last, yeah, I'm doing this for every line. So, whoops. Last pause, we start at 0, and therefore each match in grammar.re dot what's the name? Find iter, not iter find. Find iter on the line. If match.start is bigger than the last position, then we add everything from the last position to the match start as literal text. and we need to update the last position. Right. Let's add one more case here, which would be an identifier in back quotes, and that's also a rule name. That's rule name close bracket this. Start of text, the caret. Right, let's see how that works. The diff now shows the spaces being added everywhere. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Multi-line. X is verbose. Dot all. Multi-line. I think we're fine. Yeah, and the problem here was that start and end of the match are methods, not attributes. Okay, so how does that work? Ah, perfect! Everything that matched got removed. That's exactly what I wanted. So, if we have rule name in the groups, oh, can I use pattern matching on dicts? I think I can. Mapping patterns. Yeah. Let's do more pattern matching. So if I have a rule name called rule name, then let's add the text for now. And add some decorations so we know it's there. And if I have a rule ref, let's add different decoration just to see this actually works. And then I'll try researching what the actual nodes here should be. Nope. That didn't work. Why did it not work? I print stuff out here. Oh, groups is the numbered groups. I need to use the
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? You can reference the group name groups.
group dates.
Never mind then. I thought of these.
Yeah. If this was designed today, a lot of these backwards compatible names wouldn't be there at all. But
Yeah, I'm probably thinking of another language.
so let's print out the group dict. Rule names compound statement. Rule ref is it always includes all of them. Let me make the case statements easy to read, but this harder to read, right? You can use match as a variable name. It's a soft keyword. Yes. That would break too much pre-existing code if it wasn't. Yeah. Right, so yeah, so now I only get the stuff that's actually there, so I can match it. And the output is nice. And I want to get rid of these here. Those are the backticks that I'm matching. Sorry, I can make it a bit bigger. Right. Okay. So, all right, this is great. What I want to do now is either add rules for more of this stuff. Like I probably want to get these tokens and this as well, but that'll be easy. The hard part will not be the regular expressions, but generating the link targets, right? This is not what I want to add. I want to add a link target. So let me look in the pseudo XML output, assuming I still have it, for something like this, which is the old piece of the old grammar that I didn't get rid of yet. So that is in simple statements. Oh, I'm using it as an example everywhere. Let's search for this. So there's a production list, and it generates a production with an ID. All right. production with an ID and a token name. I probably can't use that directly. So I need some other way to generate a link target. Maybe I want to look in examples here, like what does PyDecorator, and like how do you document a decorator? PyDecorator mixin. Oh, it just extends a function from Sphinx. Oh, great. Is there something that creates like its own own object type? Oh, there's add object type. That's probably what I want to do. That sounds like it's the thing I would want to do, and it should be from Sphinx. Okay, so what I want to do is to add this link target, right? So I can link to something called mapping pattern, right? But I can't really use the production rule or whatever it's called here, the production, because then I would need to use the production list, and that's something that Sphinx hard codes. So I think I need a new object type. So it's a very convenient way to add a new object that can be cross-referenced, which is perfect. It'll probably break all the links if I don't use productions, which isn't that good. So what does this do? Creates a new directive for documenting the object, creates a new role to cross-reference those descriptions, it can take a function that populates a node with children parts from a string, and it has an object name. Okay. Okay, but it doesn't give me a way to then create objects of that type. What does this add node do? Register a node class. It's not it. And role. Nope. now I guess I'm not looking at the right place, which happens a lot with Sphinx. The what? So add object type, it looks like this is adding things to the parser. Right, it adds a directive that can parse this, and it adds a role here, but I don't want to put things in the parser. I want to generate things by code. Let's look around pending xref. So I can add references. Can I add IDs? How does this resolve references work? That's not documented. Do I add references? Reference domain. Resolve xref. Okay, I'm now getting lost in reading documentation. Yeah. Well, if we add an object, that would be in our code, I guess. Oh yeah, there's a setup for the whole app. You can add directives, object types, anything we want really. Resolve the pending xref node. Oh dear. This is something I know nothing about. Hmm. So, let me look at the implementation of production list for any hints. And there's add nodes. Production list does nothing. Production does nothing. Yeah, this is just a class for data, I think. Like this production list directive. Directive to list grammar productions, which does parsing. And it does note object. Note object. Let's look at the documentation for what that does. Notes a Python object for cross-reference. Nice. Okay. Great. So that's the Python domain. This is apparently the standard domain, which is this. Okay, so before I do anything else, I will put stuff in Git. This is start parsing grammar snippets in the Sphinx extension. Okay, and now we go to the Sphinx code. So I take the standard domain, and on the domain I can note object, which I mean the documentation for it isn't really clear. Oh, here it is. So it notes a So in the Python domain, it notes a Python object for cross-reference. There's a deprecation node for Sphinx domains std standard domain add object to be replaced with alternatives to. Yeah, so you have to replace it with this, but there's no documentation for this. Boo. Yeah. Well, I mean, Python domain, I guess is fine together with this, right? So this is how you use it. We want to note an object. First argument is, that's the name. So I guess that's the what? Does this have a different syntax? Name, object type, node ID, alias, location. location is the node that contains this. An object name is production group colon name. So this is what I want to do, and I assume that if I do this, I assume that if I mark the link targets the same way as Sphinx does it, the URLs and the intersphinx references won't break. Right? So if something links to the current documentation to this assignment statement, which you can do, if I replace this whole thing, I want those references to not break. So I want to use the same mechanism. So let's try that. So this attaches stuff to a node, which I hope can be any node. And in my case, that will be this. Name. Get rid of this now. Okay. So now, there. Domain here will be self-anti domain standard domain, and this is in a directive, which we're also in a directive, so that should be the same thing. I just put it all in here and then I'll put it in the right places. So that's the domain. Object name is this. So production group, this group name here. And name is this rule name. Yep. Now node ID. No ID it calls an make ID function. Oh no. I hope it's not a private function. Please don't be a private function. Do we have make ID in the documentation? No. It's imported from Sphinx util nodes. Sphinx util nodes, okay. So it takes an environment, a document, a prefix. Oh no, I lost my position in this file. A prefix. Oh, I don't like GitHub, where if I click something, everything changes. Oh, here it was. So the prefix is grammar token production group. And our production group is this group name, and let's modernize this a bit. And this name is the name of the token. So I probably rename this to just name. Okay, let's do some pipate on this. And let's see what kind of errors we get from that. Oh. No. The problem with that is the formatting is done in the HTML writer, right? So this, it's like this gets added in the HTML writer and in the LaTeX writer and then the man page writer and the plain text writer. Yeah. So no, there's no way to customize that for every writer because you can write your own, right? So no, unfortunately, can't be done. So that gave us an error. Dict object has no attribute standard domain. And so this is self-env domains, standard domain, which works here, but not in our code. What is self-env domains? It's a dict. That's weird. So if I take the std domain in here, it works. Okay. Node, yeah, this node would be this name node. And this ran without errors. And if I look in the HTML here, it does not have an ID. Oh, it is. Yeah, this has an ID of grammar token Python grammar old mapping pattern. So maybe it can't be a text. Oh, the text node is. The text node is probably special. I need to make it like a bold node. I think I remember reading something about how to make bold nodes. I don't remember where. Literal strong. Sphinx add nodes literal strong. Okay, let's do that. I think that's it. Yeah, 10 minutes. then my time is up as well. Oh! Oh, it's strong now, but still no ID. Unfortunately. Okay, so that... that didn't work. Oh, what do you mean? No, once again? No, where? Oh, this. That's the type of the object. Basically. I guess I will need to look at this token xrefs as well. Oh no. This adds xrefs to tokens that are already there. Oh wow, this uses the same trick I do. I swear I didn't see it here. Yeah. Token RE, find iter, and then like adding the text between the matches. Exactly the same thing I came up with. Which is good. Yeah, this does some magic, and then it adds a pending xref, which is great. I will do that later, but what is this note? Implicit target? Oh, it adds an ID here. Okay. What's subnode is the production. Yeah, for name node IDs, append this node ID once I have it. Oops. Lost my place. And then this does note implicit target. I have no idea what that is, so let's just copy it. Oh, this repeats node 2 times. So yeah, I'm trying to make this work first. And if it does, I'll try to rubber duck explain it to myself. Alright, so this now has an ID. Let me look at the existing documentation. Oh, next topic. Components. How does file input look here? So there's a strong ID, grammar token, Python grammar file input, and in here there's grammar token, Python grammar file, which is good because there's a difference between the names. So now it looks like the HTML output looks exactly like like the previous version, which is what I wanted. Now this is the ID. Now the problem is, yeah, I'm appending the ID directly, so I can't really be sure this node implicit target and the node object should probably be in the same order as Sphinx does it. So I can't be sure if this weird machinery is registering the link target appropriately. And yes, definitely. I will need to like go through this once again and see if there's a better way to do this. And if not, get in touch with the Sphinx maintainer to maybe add API for it. Well, but yeah, it's definitely cargo culty. I'll give you that. But now for the rule reference, I will add this ref node where the text will be the name, ref type will be token, ref domain is standard, and ref target is this. And then I add text to it with the name and add the ref node to the literal node and see what kinds of things break there. And yes, definitely at the very least I'll have a Sphinx expert look at this in the upcoming pull request. But right now I'm very happy that I at least got this to work. Okay, so file statement. Statement links to statement, and this statement is something we actually generated. Okay, this ID is on the wrong thing. Unfortunately, do I add the ID first? Let's see what the right, so ID first, then node implicit target, then node object. So add ID first, node implicit target, then node object. So that should be the correct order. And Sphinx, it's taking its time again. I guess it's time to wrap this up. But did you see what just happened? This is a valid link target and this is a valid link. And it's all, yes, it actually links to something we generated ourselves. So let's do one more rebuild here and wrap this up. And of course, for next week it's cleanup time. Get rid of a few prints at least. If you want to wait around until Sphinx finishes its thing, hopefully it can do it in half a minute. But yeah, I'll put this to Git and push it to my branch. And I think it's a good place to wrap this up and continue next week. Right, go to statement, see how that works. Oh, the ID. The correct ID is now, hopefully the correct ID is now on the correct element. Everything's working. The code is not pretty, but that's for next week. Thanks for joining. Oh, you were a great audience. I mean, I would not like to do this with a rubber duck. You were great. Thank you. See you next week.